Good afternoon. I realize everyone here is already on board with accessibility, so my goal here is perhaps to expand your thinking about access, inclusion, and exclusion. This is, let's face it, the public's common perception of access issues. Literally can't get through the door. But what if you are deliberately discouraged from even approaching the door? We've had institutions like this for most of our history as a country. In 2013 in Ontario, we apologized to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities for the suffering endured in these dark places. But attitudes and practices of segregation continue. They simply take different forms. Why do I care? Well, I care because as a young man, about a year after that scary photo was taken, through sheer happenstance in the form of my own ignorance, I didn't know what a developmental challenge or disability was. I applied for a job for which I was not qualified. I got the job. For the first time in my life, I met a person with the label Down syndrome. For the first time in my life, I met a person with the label autism. It made me very angry. It made me angry because it meant kids like Ben here had been hidden away from me for my entire life. I knew this was wrong. When my wife Julie and I started an organization called LiveWorkPlay in an effort to do things differently, initially we failed. We actually ended up replicating day programs and shelter workshops like a lot of other agencies. But 7 years ago, we committed to get back on track. Unfortunately, it's rare for agencies in our field to commit to inclusion instead of to the status quo, to segregated programs and services. When you confront systems leaders about why they support segregated settings like group homes and day programs, they often suggest that these are a blessed mercy for people who can't do much anyways. It's also a violation of the fundamental human right for these citizens who are deliberately denied life opportunities. If you have a disability, it's not such a good thing to be labeled special. It's actually an insulting way of explaining you'll be denied a lot of life options, that you won't go to places where other people go. There'll be special places for you because you're special. These are guiding statements from our agency, LiveWorkPlay. It's not so important in the content. It's about belonging and community and inclusion. Because most every agency in our sector has those same types of statements. You can go look on their websites. The reality is, it's not what they do. They don't measure their inclusive results. They measure how many people come to their program for how many hours and at what cost. How bad is it? We're not sure, because we don't have the data. It's not what we measure. But I've done my best to extrapolate from US data and local information from those who would volunteer it. And I'm pretty confident this is a conservative figure. Our investment is about 80% in excluding people with intellectual and developmental disabilities from the rest of our community, and about 20% of the effort goes towards including them in places like apartments, jobs, sports and recreation like the rest of us enjoy. Some quick human examples. Royce here was publicly labeled in the Ottawa Citizen in need of 24/7 constant care, perhaps for the rest of his life. Less than 2 years later, he was living on his own in an apartment with a real job at Dow Honda, where he continues as a valued employee. It all started with seeing Royce as a human being with assets, rather than a scary bunch of files which were stacked this high. Our systems lower the bar. In Matt's case, they were lowered from birth, with claims to his parents about things he would not do, all of which he has since done. But most recently, 2 years ago, he was told that his dream of having a job was unrealistic. He should stop it. It would only lead to pain. Fortunately, his employer at Imperial Coffee didn't listen, and Matt will soon celebrate his 1-year anniversary on the job. Chris here wanted to play soccer, just soccer, not special soccer. But that's where he kept getting told to go. The registration people at the table listened to his slightly different speech, and they decided you should come back on Thursday for special needs soccer. Finally, he found a league and a team that would see Chris as the great soccer player that he is, and also an excellent teller of tall tales at the pub after the game. Where does it all go wrong? It starts with the core dishonesty known in our system as planning, where we are to present choices to individuals with intellectual disabilities and their families. In fact, what mostly happens is the agency presents the choices that are convenient to them, rather than actual person-centered planning where you find out what the person wants and try to help them get it. So, my friends, it's time for a much more appetizing menu. Instead of 4 choices of exclusion for every 1 item of inclusion, how about a recipe for success? How about a recipe for actual access to community? As we reflect on the lives of Royce, Matt, and Chris, hope you'll join me in the call that we take services and programs for exclusion off the menu, put inclusion on the menu, and together let's choose the path of life for all citizens. Thank you.